The Demon King. Magnus Leonis Death's army wages a fierce battle against humans but ultimately faces defeat. Magnus is informed that all his forces have been destroyed and that the enemy's last stronghold is this very fortress. Suddenly, he notices that many of his allies have betrayed him and joined the humans. Accepting his loss, Magnus acknowledges defeat but vows to return someday. Sometime later, two girls, Riselia and Regina, set out to investigate some ruins. Descending into the depths, they speculate that the Demon King might reside there. While exploring, they come across a massive door they cannot open. Riselia uses her phone to translate the inscription on the door but fails to understand the language. While she struggles to decipher it, Regina decides to scout the area. Unexpectedly, Riselia touches the symbols on the door and it opens. Inside, she notices her magical activity meter malfunctioning. She discovers a figure trapped inside a crystal. Magnus, sealed within, recalls that after his rebirth, he must find her, his long-lost target. Hearing the sound of gunfire against the crystal, he realizes that his resurrection ritual has been completed. Using his powers, Magnus shatters the crystal. Once freed, he sees a beautiful girl standing before him. In his new body, Magnus initially considers killing her, but quickly realizes he has been reborn as a child. The girl examines him and hugs him, leaving the boy flustered. She offers him food, which astonishes him with its taste. Realizing his new body is extremely weak, he introduces himself as Leonis, claiming to be 10 years old. Riselia assumes he was kidnapped and mentions hollows. Leonis is confused, not understanding who they are. Meanwhile, Regina explores the ruins and finds crystals that activate weapons. Riselia explains to Leonis that they came to study the ruins and investigate the hollows. When Leonis asks about the current year, he is horrified to learn that centuries have passed. At that moment, Regina informs them she has encountered hollows. Soon they face a hollow of the ogre class. Leonis tries to use magic, but loses his balance due to the weakness of his body. Riselia realizes her weapon is ineffective against the enemy, but Regina intervenes, successfully injuring the monster. Leonis notices that her weapon uses 4th-level magic. Despite this, they are forced to retreat. On their way out, they are attacked by a hollow of the Wyvern class. Leonis realizes he must use magic to defeat it, but is pushed aside by Riselia, who sacrifices herself to protect him. Gravely injured and bleeding out, she apologizes for failing to save him. 3 wyverns surround Leonis. As they attack, a magical barrier shields him. He recites a spell, destroying one wyvern and incinerating another to ashes. Yet, as he observes their remains, Leonis acknowledges that his magic is weaker than it once was. Determined to save Riselia, he uses his magic to resurrect her. When she regains consciousness, she thanks him, believing he wielded a holy healing sword. Riselia notes that her full strength has not yet awakened. Regina returns to find Riselia injured. Together, the girls escort Leonis to the surface, where they ride off on a motorcycle. On the way, Regina teases Leonis with playful comments about her body, leaving him embarrassed. He realizes the absurdity of being mocked by someone like her, despite his past as the Demon King. Finally, they reach a sprawling city that leaves Leonis awestruck by its grandeur. The district is attacked by hollows, forcing Regina and Riselia to take shelter in a bunker. Inside, they hear the sounds of battle and gunfire. Riselia tries to comfort her friend, promising that everything will be fine, and sharing her dream of joining the academy to learn special combat techniques. However, the bunker is soon attacked. Riselia wants to go outside to help, but Regina holds her back. After the battle, they are discovered, and it becomes clear that most of the people in the bunker have perished. Riselia apologizes to Regina for her empty promises, and her friend hugs her in an attempt to console her. Determined, Riselia vows never to lie again. The story then returns to the present. The group arrives at a city, an enormous artificial island designed to eliminate hollow colonies. Regina explains to Leonis that it is a unique city ship, while Riselia reports on their mission and mentions finding a boy wielding a holy sword. Riselia takes responsibility for looking after Leonis and decides to escort him to the dormitory. Along the way, she explains that he will need to go through a registration process. Leonis, meanwhile, reflects on the advancements humans have made during the centuries he was sealed in the crystal. In private, he summons his loyal servants, Blackas and Sherry. They are initially surprised by his new form, but quickly accept his orders to investigate the island. Leonis plans to infiltrate the human military to gather information. During registration, Leonis encounters a device that detects a high concentration of mana. To avoid exposure, he suppresses his magical energy and completes the process successfully. Riselia hands him an ID card, explaining its importance and warning him not to lose it. While exploring the city, Leonis is awestruck by its scale, noting that it surpasses even his former castle. They meet Musel Rhodes, who notices a scar on Reselia and begins mocking her. He ridicules her for looking after a child and tries to coerce her into joining his squad, dismissing her as useless. Leonie intervenes, intimidating Musel with a single glance and forcing him to his knees. Angered, Musel prepares to use his weapon, but the confrontation is interrupted by Elphine Filet, who reminds them that using holy swords is prohibited. Afterward, Reselia thanks Elphine for her help. Later at the dormitory, Reselia explains to Leonis that their living conditions depend on their squad's performance, which is why their dorm is quite old. Leonis asks if it's a problem for him to stay in a girls' dormitory, but Reselia reassures him that it's fine. She then shows him the bathroom, but Leonis, unfamiliar with modern amenities, uses regular soap to wash his hair. Reselia enters to help him, despite his embarrassment. During this, Reselia suggests that Leonis join her squad, though he hesitates, still focused on his own objectives. Suddenly, Reselia collapses from exhaustion. Leonis touches her leg and uses magic to restore her strength. When she regains consciousness, she unexpectedly bites him on the neck. Leonis admits to himself that he used a small trick, as he lacks the true ability to resurrect the dead. Gently, he lays Reselia in bed, contemplating his next steps. The girl remembers training 2 years ago. During training, she fought against robots but was constantly defeated, eventually collapsing from exhaustion. Regina watched her from a distance. The training session was interrupted by Musel Rhodes, who declared that Reselia was too weak to continue and suggested she join his squad. Regina stepped in to defend her friend, prompting Musel to leave. Regina reassured Reselia that she would one day become strong when she obtained her holy sword. In the present, Reselia wakes up in her room and finds that Leo has moved her to her bed. He explains that he used magic to do so. When she questions who he is, Leo admits that he is a mage and saved her by turning her into a vampire to bring her back to life. He apologizes, explaining it was the only way. Reselia then shares how her family was killed during a hollow attack on their home. She asks if she can still obtain a holy sword as a vampire. Leo isn't sure, but they decide not to dwell on it for now. The two head out to grab some food. Leo picks out some pastries, but Reselia remarks that they won't be enough to sustain him and suggests a proper meal. Leo, surprised, replies that it's ironic to hear such advice from a vampire. When he tries to pay with gold coins, Reselia explains they've long since lost their value. During their outing, they notice a commotion. A group of men is demanding payment from a girl named Sakuya, who quickly drives them off with her impressive skills. Later, Sakuya apologizes for not joining them on a ruin exploration, declaring that she's dedicated her life to fighting hollows. Meanwhile, De Gras Alto inspects Leo's holy sword and suggests testing robots on the training grounds. However, Leo easily destroys them, surprising everyone as the robots are made from the strongest steel. Alto plans to run the test again, but Musel Rhodes arrives, proposing a duel with Leo to gauge his strength. Leo agrees, adding that Musel must be stronger than this scrap metal. Angered, Musel sets a condition. If Leo loses, Reselia will join his squad. Leo counters with his own condition. If he wins, Musel must stop bothering Reselia. The battle begins. Reselia fights against two girls while Leo defends against Musel's lightning-fast attacks using dark magic. Reselia taunts Musel, accusing him of hiding behind his allies. Meanwhile, Regina notices the fight but doesn't understand what's happening. Reselia defeats the other girls and prepares to strike Musel, but he disarms her and paralyzes her. Just as Musel moves to teach Leo a lesson, Reselia suddenly receives a holy sword. She breaks free from Musel's control, destroys his weapon, and defeats him. Regina celebrates her friend's victory. Later, Reselia thanks Leo for his help, and he reminds her that she is now his servant and must protect him. The girls decide to celebrate Reselia's acquisition of the holy sword, discussing where Leo will sleep. Reselia insists he will stay in her room. Elphine conducts a biometric analysis of Leo to create him proper clothing, and shares details about her own holy sword, which provides support in battle. Leo attempts to use a tablet but struggles with it. Instead, he examines maps and notes that hollows are now appearing in areas where his army once fought. He summons Blackas, who reports the presence of a mana crystal on the island powering the entire city. Sherry returns from her reconnaissance mission with food, remarking that no one seems to know anything about Leo. She's surprised that he's made Reselia his servant, and jokingly declares herself his left-hand servant. Later, Reselia, wrapped in a towel, reminds Leo that he can use the bathroom. Meanwhile, elsewhere, underwater scouts discover a strange tree entwined around chains. The entity kills the divers, leaving its origin a mystery. A man once led him to a quarry, claiming it was to deal with a gargoyle. The man praised Leonis for his willingness to help ordinary people. However, upon arriving at the quarry, Leonis noticed it was deserted. Suddenly, a group of mages appeared. Some restrained him with chains, hoisting him into the air, while others pierced him with spears. They then lowered him back to the ground, leaving him to die. As Leonis lay dying, he heard the voice of a mysterious girl, Roselia. She acknowledged his awareness of the trap and lamented the betrayal he faced. Roselia asked if he truly believed the world was just, then declared her desire to oppose this world, having chosen him for her cause. She urged Leonis to become hers. Leonis awakens abruptly, finding himself back in the present. He wakes Roselia and orders her to rise. He explains that he woke her using his mark. Roselia, confused, asks if she must obey his every command. Leonis affirms this and requests that she warn him if she plans to bite him at night. Embarrassed, Roselia apologizes and agrees. Elfine informs Roselia that a secret meeting has been held. Roselia then suggests taking Leonis for a walk. Meanwhile, in the main hall, the group learns that all divers investigating the fourth anchor have perished. They find traces of mana and a tree entwined around the anchor. Although some suggest retreating, the decision is made to remain and protect the mana crystal while investigating the tree further. Later, Roselia continues honing her swordsmanship skills under Leonis's watchful eye. Noting her impressive fencing abilities, Leonis promises to teach her magic. To aid her training, he summons enemies for her to fight. After a rigorous session, Roselia, exhausted but satisfied, invites Leonis to have a meal together. Elsewhere, divers explore the ocean depths without success. At the dormitory, Sakuya notices Blacka sitting near the building. Elfine continues her observations as Regina visits her, bringing food. Sakuya mentions her encounter with Blackus, referring to him as a dog. Elfine reveals that a squad sent out for reconnaissance has not returned. Leonis, meanwhile, reflects on the progress humans have made over time. Sherry, attempting to earn money for her master, notices Roselia buying pastries for Leonis. Roselia later takes Leonis to a home for orphans. Seeing the children, Leonis recalls his own lonely past. As they converse, one of the boys tries to touch Roselia out of curiosity but is stopped. Roselia explains to the children that Leonis possesses a holy sword and promises to cook for them. Back underwater, the divers still find nothing. One of them hears strange noises coming from a tunnel. Simultaneously, a vibration is felt throughout the city. Residents discover that a tree is growing amidst their food supplies, leaving everyone alarmed. The arrival of ogres and the ominous figure of Arakail de Gradios, who proposes sacrificing humans to save the city. However, Leonis intervenes, dispelling Arakail's magic and calling the plan meaningless. Declaring his intention to protect everyone, Leonis leaps into battle, defeating ogre after ogre with ease. The townsfolk watch in awe as Leonis fights with enthusiasm. His skill and power elicit admiration from the citizens but provoke deep resentment in Arakail. Meanwhile, the ancient tree continues its relentless advance. The High Council monitors its movements, noting that the massive entity has disappeared from view. They resolve to locate and destroy it. Elfine offers to report her findings to the council, which agrees to hear her. She explains that her research has detected strange vibrations beneath the city, revealing the presence of hollows. The council realizes that the tree is moving towards critical infrastructure, including food storage facilities. At an orphanage, the children enjoy their meal, and one of the girls shyly expresses her admiration for Leonis. Elsewhere, soldiers investigating a warehouse encounter the tree, which eradicates them with ease. The council deliberates on how to eliminate the tree. As they strategize, soldiers report that the entity has moved towards the city's mana power core. An emergency response is initiated, with troops deployed to defend the crystal and civilians ordered into shelters. The tree continues its advance, breaching the city's defenses. Automated cannons fire at the entity but struggle to slow it. The city's leader orders full defensive measures, focusing all energy on protecting the mana crystal, while gathering military forces. Meanwhile, the orphans plead with Leonis to show them his holy sword. Amused, Leonis instead conjures skeletons, much to their amazement and excitement. As the tree nears the crystal, the city comes under attack from a wave of hollows. A distress signal is broadcast, and the city shifts into full defensive mode, with holy sword wielders taking up arms. Sherry arrives at Leonis's side, asking for orders. He instructs her to protect Roselia's acquaintances. Above them, wyverns swarm the skies, adding to the chaos. Leonis asks Sherry if she is afraid. She admits she is, and Leonis, reassuring her, obliterates the wyverns with fire magic. The Hollows continue their assault. Sakuya engages in battle, taking down ogres with impressive skill, while Regina eliminates wyverns with precision. However, a Hollow of Hydra class emerges, escalating the threat. Amid the chaos, a colossal dragon appears, destroying the city's defensive weaponry with devastating force. Leonis instructs Roselia to guard him while he prepares an immensely powerful spell. Struggling with the limitations of his current body, he manages to cast a level 10 incantation, obliterating the dragon by crushing it with overwhelming force. Yet, just as victory seems within reach, massive roots erupt from the ground, ensnaring a nearby girl. At this critical moment, Leonise comes face to face with an old nemesis, Aracael de Gradios. Leonis returning from the battlefield, where he reveals to Reselia that he died multiple times during the fight, but ultimately emerged victorious and gained new powers. Leonis mentions befriending Black as the Shadow Prince. As a token of trust, Black as presents Leonis with a demonic sword that can be summoned under specific conditions, requiring its wielder to confront the truth. Later, Leonis confronts Aracael in a fierce battle, but the ancient tree retreats during their clash. Blacka senses the return of an old enemy. Meanwhile, the children from the orphanage plead with Leonis to protect Reselia. In response, Leonis summons cursed warriors to defend the house. Blackas provides food to Leonis as he prepares for the next confrontation. Elsewhere, Sakuya battles a massive hollow, but struggles to hold her ground, prompting her squad to request reinforcements. Leonis decides to rescue Reselia, and asks Elfine to accompany him. She informs him that Reselia is on the 7th level. During their journey, Elfine sacrifices herself to block an attack, but Sherry saves her at the last moment. Blackus leads Leonis through the tunnels, questioning his reasons for protecting humans. Leonis admits that he has grown attached to them. Finally, Leonis and Blackus find Aracael, who is absorbing mana from the crystal to regenerate and grow stronger. Aracael reveals his plan to reshape the world entirely, with the hollow star as the centerpiece. Leonis deduces that Aracael has consumed priests of the Sacred Order to gain power. Although Leonis attacks with his full strength, he discovers that destroying the tree alone is futile. Aracael prepares a massive counterattack, chanting a powerful spell. Leonis retaliates with his own magic, but realizes Aracael is feeding off the mana crystal's energy. Meanwhile, Reselia, despite her fear, resolves to fight and breaks free from the vines restraining her. She uses her blood to weaken the tree's defenses. Leonis locates Reselia and throws a blood-soaked dart at her, transforming her into a vampire with wings. As Aracael casts a level 10 spell, Leonis decides to use the demonic sword, which demands unwavering resolve to unlock. Aracael is shocked that Leonis could wield it. With a single devastating strike, Leonis defeats Aracael. The remaining hollows retreat as the battle ends. The council observes that the Hollow Lord has been vanquished. They mistakenly believe his death resulted from the crystal's destruction. Reselia is reunited with her friends, and Leonis, exhausted from the ordeal, collapses onto his bed. Reselia enters his room with a gift from the orphanage children. She shyly asks Leonis for his blood, and he agrees. As she drinks from his finger, other girls walk in, catching them in the act and misunderstanding the situation. Meanwhile, a noblewoman, hearing about the city's struggle, sets sail to offer assistance. To her surprise, the city has already fended off the attack. She resolves to reward the defenders for their heroic efforts. After the attack by the Voids, the city was left in ruins and its inhabitants began rebuilding. Leonis wanted to enter a sealed vault but realized he wasn't permitted inside. At that moment, Regina appeared and unexpectedly hugged him with her eyes closed. She offered to help him gain access to the vault. Using her cunning and influence over the spirit guardian, Regina convinced the spirit to let Leonis in. She then told him he could study anything he wished. They soon received a message informing them that they would be rewarded for defending the city. Leonis decided to stay a little longer to complete his tasks. Meanwhile, a group of beastmen plotted to kidnap the princess. They were aided by a mysterious woman who promised to grant them power in exchange for their loyalty. Bast, one of the beastmen, demonstrated his strength by slicing through a tree with a single strike, convincing the group to follow her orders. She instructed them to leave the holy sword wielders alive and bring them to her. During this time, Leonis noticed a human battleship and decided to buy a gift for Reselia. Princess Ray Oltrizi Alteria addressed the public despite her guards' warnings to stay away from the edge of the platform. Regina observed her from a distance. Meanwhile, Leonis gave Reselia a gift, which delighted her. The girls invited him to board the ship. When Leonis asked about Regina, they explained that she had her reasons for keeping her distance. On board, a girl named Fenris appeared and voiced her disapproval of the 18th unit's presence. However, she congratulated Reselia on awakening her holy sword. Meanwhile, the beastmen disguised themselves as guards, killed the real ones, and took their places. Leonis studied documents aboard the ship but found no references to magic or technological advancements. His thoughts were interrupted by Sherry, who had dressed as a maid. She reported that the ship was powered by a magic crystal and equipped with powerful weaponry. Leonis gave her a gift, leaving Sherry flustered. Later, Reselia and the other girls approached Leonis in swimsuits, inviting him to swim with them. Although he admitted he didn't know how to swim, Reselia offered to teach him. Others watched as Leonis learned to swim. At the same time, Regina sat alone, conflicted and unsure of her purpose. Meanwhile, the beastmen attacked the princess's guards, killing them one by one. Alteria ordered the master key to flee while the attackers captured other people in the audience hall. The beastmen removed their masks, revealing their true identities. They threw a grenade, and Fenris doubted they possessed holy weapons. However, their leaders instructed them not to harm the holy sword wielders. Leonis decided to act, vanishing as he vowed to protect the princess. Alteria used her skills to alter the ship's course, only to realize it was heading straight into a void's lair. Meanwhile, Sharnak, the mysterious woman, revealed her indifference toward the beastmen. Everything was part of her plan to sacrifice the holy sword wielders. When Bast tried to protest, Sharnak incinerated him effortlessly. Regina received a message from the key beast and rushed to help. She leapt onto the ship, realizing her sister was in danger. At the same time, Leonis, while searching for his way, encountered Regina, who informed him that Alteria needed his help. Regina shares a story about a red star that shone brightly one night. According to imperial law, children of the emperor must not be born under such a star. Following this rule, the emperor ordered the death of the fourth princess. However, Duke Crystalia pleaded for her life to be spared. They devised a cover story to protect her, and the girl survived. Regina became the princess's servant, dedicating herself to her protection. She had come to the port to see her sister. Regina explains that the ship can only be controlled with the help of a spirit. Meanwhile, Fenris tries to uncover the ship's destination. Elfine reveals that she left a drone to monitor the situation and discovered an explosive device aboard. Riselia decides to tap into her vampire powers to free herself. Leonis and Regina rush to the bridge, only to find it deserted. They realize that the ship cannot be turned. Regina wishes to save her sister, but fears that doing so would reveal her existence to the princess. Regina contacts Alteria, who informs her they are heading to the launch pad. Alteria insists they must stop the ship. Leonis vows to rescue the princess. While controlling her blood, Riselia nearly reaches her goal. Meanwhile, Sakuya and Fenris create a distraction. One of the beastmen attempts to detonate the bomb, but Elfine uses her drone to neutralize the threat as Riselia destroys the detonator. The group activates their weapons and fights back, successfully stopping the beastmen. Riselia tries to contact Leonis, but he doesn't respond. They realize the ship is now in the center of a void swarm. The voids attack, forcing the group to shield the civilians. Leonis communicates telepathically with Riselia, asking her to protect Regina. Alteria demands to know where she's being taken, and Sharnak mockingly tells her she'll become a plaything for sadists. Regina attempts to reach the ship's controls but is aided by Riselia. Suddenly, a powerful void known as a brain eater appears on the ship. Sakuya declares she will handle it and orders the others to focus on protecting the civilians. Riselia easily slays several voids while safeguarding Regina. Using the access code Crimson Star, Regina manages to steer the ship away from danger. As a helicopter prepares to take off, Leonis intercepts it, vowing that its occupants will pay for their actions. Surrounded by voids, Leonis and Sherry fight them off. Sakuya defeats the Brain Eater, though she is left exhausted. Meanwhile, Sharnak confronts Leonis, asking who he really is. He declares himself the Demon King. Sharnak casts a powerful spell created by the Demon King himself, but Leonis effortlessly destroys it. He interrogates her about the goddess's name, but before she can answer, a mysterious sword kills her. Leonis realizes the Void Lord is now the sword itself, possessing the ability to teleport. While protecting Alteria, Leonis skillfully avoids the sword's attacks. Regina provides critical support by using the ship's weapons to launch missiles at the Void Lord. Riselia arrives to assist Leonis, and he asks her to buy him some time. Drawing on his demonic blade, Leonis overpowers the Void Lord and secures a decisive victory. After the battle, Alteria expresses her gratitude to the group. She inquires about the swordsman who saved them, and the girls explain that Leonis is resting after the intense fight. Alteria also asks about the medium who communicated with her, to which the girls relay the medium's message of thanks and best wishes. Later, Regina visits Leonis, bringing him a pie she baked. She thanks him for his help and, in a moment of affection, kisses him. She then shyly asks him to keep it a secret. The city guards locate the hideout of the beastmen and trap them. As the guards enter, they demand the beastmen surrender, but a spell of petrification is cast, immobilizing everyone. The beastmen are also forced to kneel. Leonis, revealing himself as the Demon King, offers them a deal. Pledge loyalty to him in exchange for sanctuary. The beastmen agree. Leonis then creates a labyrinth and instructs them to train within it to hone their skills. As Leonis oversees the situation, he receives a call from Riselia, who asks where he disappeared to. She notices that animals are gathering around her, likely drawn by her vampire aura. Stepping out of her room, Riselia sees Sherry wiping her eyes before mysteriously vanishing. Deciding to take a shower, Riselia is unaware that Leonis has returned to their quarters. Leonis enters the room and accidentally sees Riselia in the middle of changing. At the same time, Regina returns and catches them together in this awkward situation. Later, during lunch, Regina notices the animals lingering near the group. The girls question Leonise about his whereabouts, and he explains that he was training for an upcoming match. The match begins, with Riselia and Leonise quickly securing advantageous positions. Elphine and Regina help defend their team's flag while Sakuya charges ahead. During the match, Riselia is bitten by Fenris's summoned wolf, frustrating her. Riselia feels that Fenris is overusing her weapon. A fight breaks out between Riselia and Fenris. Riselia struggles at first, but ultimately loses the duel. Meanwhile, Leonise easily defeats another competitor. Riselia, determined to prove herself, declares that she will never lose again and manages to triumph over her opponent. The council observes the matches closely, analyzing the performance of the participants. After the match, Leonise joins the girls for a celebratory bath. Riselia washes his back, and the group revels in their victory. However, elsewhere, the Void Lord is shown feeding weapons into a magical crystal to awaken the goddess. The 18th platoon is summoned to the council and briefed about a mysterious void city that has been emitting strange signals. They are tasked with investigating the area within 72 hours to prevent an imminent threat. Elphine questions why their unit was chosen for this mission, and Leone speculates that someone may be pulling the strings behind the scenes. He asks his allies to stay vigilant and investigate further. As the team prepares, Leonis notices a butterfly on Blacka's, a gift from Sakuya. During their helicopter journey to the target location, Regina offers her lap as a pillow for Leonis, much to Riselia's annoyance. Despite Riselia's objections, Regina insists. As Leonis rests, he recalls a memory of Roselia, telling him that she would soon disappear and be reborn in 1,000 years. Leonis had promised to find her no matter what. The team arrives near their destination and decides to split up to cover more ground. Riselia reflects on how the city used to look, but her thoughts are interrupted when they are suddenly ambushed. A girl awakens in a futuristic world devoid of plants, dominated by metal and concrete. She realizes that this is the time and place where the goddess is destined to be reborn. A man appears, introducing himself as Nephekes, a void lord. Nephekes quickly deduces that the girl intends to destroy the goddess using a sacred sword. Declaring his allegiance to the goddess, he summons a void monster and engages her in combat. The girl attacks, but he teleports away to avoid her strikes. Meanwhile, Leonis teleports Roselia to a safe location, leaving himself alone to face the void creature. Sensing the battle, the other girls grow concerned and head towards the commotion. Leonis uses his skills to immobilize the monster and finishes it off with a powerful fire spell. After defeating the beast, Leonis returns to Roselia, finding her injured. They decide to locate a safer place to regroup. As they move, they encounter the head of an ancient order who once served Roselia's father. A spirit communicates with Roselia, revealing that it was the spirits who sent the plea for help. They warn of the imminent awakening of the Void Lord, urging immediate action. Realizing the danger, Leonis summons phantom horses to carry them to a secure location. While traveling, the group spots a young woman hiding behind a wall. Suddenly, the woman attacks. Sakuya steps in, saving Regina from a strike, and insists the others avoid fighting her. However, despite Sakuya's warnings, a battle ensues. Sakuya quickly overpowers the mysterious girl and notices she is wounded. Elsewhere, Nephekes watches over a mana crystal, awaiting the goddess's resurrection. Meanwhile, Roselia and Elphine communicate, coordinating a meeting and learning about a survivor. To lift her spirits, Leonis gifts Roselia a dress made specifically for vampires, along with skeletal trinkets. Roselia recognizes his concern for her and feels touched by the gesture. Back at their temporary shelter, Regina tends to the wounded girl, who introduces herself as Aurel. She explains that she was attacked while on a mission. Elphine notes that Aurel's name is not on the city's resident registry, raising suspicions. Aurel thanks the group for their help but insists she must continue her journey. However, hunger overtakes her, and Sherry quietly observes her from the shadows. Nephekes receives a report that the angel has been destroyed. Meanwhile, Roselia reflects on her childhood memories, recalling her father's stories about a hero who defeated the Demon King. As Leonis takes a seat, he marvels at the comfort of the chair but remains on edge due to the situation. While exploring a ruined building, Errol finds a book and reminisces about her father's tales. Suddenly, Nephekes appears before her. Misinterpreting her as merely a survivor, he insults her, enraging Errol. The confrontation escalates, and Nephekes lands a devastating blow, leaving her gravely injured and barely alive. Roselia lies unconscious, lost in a memory from her childhood. She recalls her father urging her to take refuge and to remember the lessons he taught her, to protect others at all costs. He also told her about the Demon King, a figure feared for his cruelty, yet someone capable of defeating the void. As the memory fades, undead creatures appear. Nephekes recognizes their strength and comments on their power. Leonis counters, explaining that these undead were summoned by talismans. Despite Leonis's attacks, Nephekes survives, leaving Leonis impressed by his resilience. Nephekes retaliates with flames, but Leonis disperses them effortlessly. Suddenly, the ground shakes violently as an earthquake erupts. Nephekes proclaims that he has resurrected the goddess and that this world is doomed. Leonis recalls his past encounters with Nephekes and notices the symbol of the goddess. Moments later, the Void Lord appears, accompanied by a massive swarm of void creatures. Recognizing the hymn of the Holy Order, Leonis grows more determined. Meanwhile, the girls send out a distress signal as the swarm grows more overwhelming. As the battle rages, undead warriors fight alongside Reselia against the void creatures. However, the void creatures regenerate quickly, making them difficult to defeat. Leonis realizes that their weak spot is their heads and shares this with the others. Despite this, the undead press on, holding their ground. Reselia notices a massive creature moving toward them as the girls locate a vehicle to aid in their escape. Leonis and Reselia continue their fight. Realizing the escalating danger, Leonis prepares a powerful incantation that scorches everything around them. However, the goddess remains unharmed. She retaliates with fiery magic that kills her own allies in the process. Leonis shields everyone with a protective dome, sparing them from her flames. He then urges Reselia to defend him while he prepares his next move. Using her vampiric powers, Reselia holds off the enemies, buying Leonis enough time to approach the goddess. He attempts to use his demonic blade, but the weapon refuses to activate. Suddenly, Leonis hears Roselia's voice, leaving him in disbelief. Before he can process what's happening, Roselia defends herself against his attack, countering with a strike that wounds him in the chest. Reselia, wearing her enchanted vampire dress, launches an attack on the Void Lord, but the effort exhausts her and she collapses. Leonis falls unconscious, plagued by memories of the promise he made to find Roselia no matter what. As his strength wanes, he begs Reselia to drink his blood to survive. Leonis recalls the goddess commanding someone to kill him with the demonic blade. However, Reselia, refusing to abandon him, transfers her own blood into Leonis, hoping to save his life. The goddess tells Leonis that when the time comes, he will remember his true purpose. However, Leonis already realizes that he must destroy this false goddess and find the real one. He asks Reselia for a piece of her dress to use in his plan. Meanwhile, the goddess begins to recover, and Leonis asks Reselia to cover him while he prepares for the final strike. The souls of fallen warriors begin reaching out to Leonis, offering their strength for a decisive attack. He agrees and gathers their souls, using ancient magic to unify them into a powerful spell. With this spell, he summons an army of skeletons, imbuing them with the souls of the fallen so they can fight again. He instructs Reselia to lead the charge and distract the enemies while he finishes his preparations. Meanwhile, Elfine finishes hacking the motorcycles, and Sakuya agrees to take her to the battlefield. The battle rages on, with warriors and newly summoned skeletons defending Leonis. However, completing the spell takes time. The girls on motorcycles are already approaching the fray. Reselia takes a heavy hit from the enemy, but quickly recovers thanks to her vampiric nature. Leonis gathers a massive amount of energy, but the Lord of the Void also prepares a devastating spell. He unleashes an attack, setting everything ablaze. In response, Reselia lifts Leonis into the air to give him the chance to finish the spell. An enormous void creature attacks the girls, but Sherry, the maid, arrives just in time to destroy the monster. The battle reaches its climax. Leonis is close to completing the soul-gathering spell when the Lord of the Void begins preparing another annihilation spell. However, Leonis is ready this time. The enemy casts a high-level divine shield to block his magic. A wounded girl from Leonis's team manages to break the shield, allowing Leonis to unleash all his gathered magic upon the Lord of the Void, ultimately destroying him. After the victory, the spirits that aided Leonis bid farewell to Lady Reselia and depart. Regina and the other girls find Leonis and Reselia. Helicopters, along with Fenris, arrive to assist them. Leonis starts pondering the mysterious elf Ariel and how she became involved in these events. Reselia shares a story she heard from her father about a hero who defeated the demon. However, Leonis notices that the story differs significantly from what he remembers. Later, Leonis discusses future plans with his subordinates and orders them to gather more information about Ariel. Sherry voices her displeasure about him giving the vampiric dress to Reselia. Meanwhile, Reselia emerges from the bath and asks Leonis for permission to drink his blood, hinting at the trust and closeness between them. Elfine analyzes the situation, trying to uncover the cause of the void creature's appearance. Sakuya reflects on Ariel's strength and concludes that she needs to train even harder. Suddenly, an explosion occurs. Standing alone, Leonis declares that he is preparing to revive his army and conquer the world to fulfill his grand ambitions.